Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Friday Charge from the Geek podcast. We are your hosts, Joel and Sebastian, and today, November 1st, 2024, we've got a handful of topics, such as a new Electric V, EV integration in Google Maps, and more. So let's plug in and get started. So our first story, Cadillac has teased their first Electric V. So the details are still sparse on this one, but Cadillac has teased their first electric V car, which is naturally the Lyriq. While Cadillac has not officially announced specs, they have stated that this will be all-wheel drive. I will expect this to use a similar powertrain to the upcoming Blazer SS, which in the Blazer is supposed to produce 595 horsepower, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to find that Cadillac kind of tweaks that up a little bit to keep them kind of above the Blazer in that regard. Um, like I said, there's not a lot of details on this yet, so I didn't have a ton of notes, but you can see kind of in that picture there, they have done some stuff on the front styling to make it a little bit more aggressive and mean. But I'm kind of excited to see what Cadillac decides to do with their first sports car. You know, they've previously, the V cars have all been supercharged or turbocharged V8s and super fast, you know, with deep, hearty, rumbly exhaust and whatnot. And so it'll be interesting to see what their take is on that with a electric car.
This is a sharp looking. I like this. This is kind of my first time actually getting to look at it like this. This is a sharp looking EV. Go on, Cadillac, with your bad self. So I've always been kind of a fan of Cadillac. I like the Lyriqs. I liked all their cars. I like the Escalade. I mean, this is pretty cool looking. I'm excited to hear specs. I'm probably going to be shocked at the pricing of this car, but it's a V series, so it's going to be fast. It's going to be expensive. So way to go, Cadillac, with kind of stepping up on the Lyriq here. I like the more aggressive front. You said that is pretty cool. I really like that color too. So pretty cool. I can't wait to hear more about this.
Moving on, Ford has added EV integration with Google Maps over Android Auto. So Ford this week has released an OTA to Mustang Mach-E owners and Lightning owners, enabling the ability to use native EV routing in Google Maps through Android Auto. And even more impressively to me, this Google Maps integration will now tell the vehicle to initiate preconditioning, which is a feature that was previously limited to the vehicle's built-in navigation. I think this is the first time we're seeing an EV do this through like a third-party connection through Android Auto. There's plenty of EVs that do it, you know, with the built-in navigation or that will let you actually just turn on manual preconditioning, which I still think is an excellent choice. Like, I think that should be an option in every EV. But I think this is the first time we're seeing one actually do it through a connected device, which is pretty sweet, pretty kind of like technologically cool.
So yeah, I mean, we've been talking a lot. I mean, we talked before we started this episode that we've been talking a lot of Ford lately, and the reason is because Ford has been making substantial updates to the two EVs that they have out. So they're not bringing any new EVs out. So if you're not going to bring any new ones, what do you got to do? You got to make really cool updates to the one you had. So I'm really excited about this. I like how it can calculate the estimated state of charge upon arrival at the routes. It was just charging stops along the way, including estimated charging time. This is the things we wanted to see, you know, that in EVs. All EVs should do this. All EVs should route the superchargers. All EVs should show you standard charge when you get there, how long you need to charge, and when you need to leave. So this is awesome. Glad they're finally getting this update. So kudos to Ford for keeping your cars fresh and, you know, relevant, even though you're only going to have two of them for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and so it's no secret. You can go back and look at previous episodes. When Ford kind of announced they were scaling back EV programs, we were both pretty nervous about what that would actually mean. But I've kind of started to feel a little bit more at ease seeing them make, you know, minor tweaks to the Mustang Mach-E, like minor meaningful tweaks to the Mach-E, and then now doing stuff like this. And there's just been some like general kind of positive energy coming out of Ford here lately that, like, yes, they're still only going to continue to sell the same 3 EVs they currently sell. But hey, we're not actually just giving up on them yet, or only putting resources into these EVs that aren't going to come out till 2027. Also wanted to note, so this is different. This operates differently than the EV routing and Apple Maps does. So that was previously available. So this is the first time this has been available for Android Auto users. It's important to note that as of now, Ford does not see a way to do the automatic preconditioning using the Apple Maps integration on Apple CarPlay, which is a little bit of a bummer. Maybe they'll figure something out, but I wouldn't be surprised to find out that's some like weird API Apple limitation, because Apple's Apple.
Apple's Apple. They probably have some weird block on it that won't let you do it. Yeah.
But still, it's cool to see this come out, and if you guys have seen our Mustang Mach E coverage previously when we actually drove one, or our Ford Lightning coverage, we were both like super impressed and super pleased by the fact that you could do it in Apple Maps.
Yes.
And so I don't see why it would be any different or any less impressive in Google Maps, especially if you're able to do preconditioning. You just have to have an Android phone, which
yeah, that's not us.
And the angry comments.
We don't need any hate from Android users. We're already getting enough. It's just easier for our lives. We have Macs. We have Apple. We have iPhones. It just makes life a whole lot easier for us.
Hey man, give me the engagement. Put it in the comments. Tell me how much I'm wrong for wanting an iPhone.
Tell us how much you hate us, and because we're Android haters. I hope to see something from my buddy Colin, who has an S24 and he lives and dies by that phone. So yes, please. It does have a better camera. I will say that the camera is pretty solid on those phones. But I just need everything together. I want to be able to airdrop photos to my computer when I'm working and things like that. It just makes my life a whole lot easier. Moving on.
Polestar/Volvo cars are now able to use Tesla superchargers. First off, welcome to the club. Joel, when do we meet?
We meet every Thursday. Oh, it's every Tuesday.
Every Thursday, my bad.
Thursday we do the podcast. So every Tuesday at 7 is when we meet. So yes.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So Polestar announced earlier this week that owners could now use Tesla superchargers and will need to activate the charge using the Tesla app. So I actually thought this was interesting because so far, Ford and Rivian, you can do the Tesla app or plug-in charge.
Mm-hmm.
GM was Tesla app, or you could do it in the GM app, the GM My Brand apps, but no plug-in charge. Polestar and Volvo are, you have to use the Tesla app, but allegedly Volvo will be adding the ability to use the Volvo app soon. Soon.
Soon. Could be next year, could be in 2 years. Yep.
Could be next week. Who knows?
Yep.
Also, interestingly, Polestar is not currently allowing online orders for the official adapter, instead requesting that owners contact their local service center for ordering info. Which seems odd for a brand. Yeah, and it also just seems odd for a brand that you can buy the car online from.
Yep.
But then they want you to go through a dealer to get a $200 adapter.
Yep.
I don't know. Something doesn't add up there.
Branded adapter. So yeah.
Right.
And we're starting to see kind of like we talked about this, a snowfall effect. So you have Polestar, you got Volvo, you have Hyundai coming out soon, you have GM that was just recently announced, Ford. You're starting to see, I'm sure I'm missing one in there somewhere. Rivian, you're starting to see the snowball effect that in the next 6 or 8 months, it's going to be everyone, probably except Volkswagen. The Volkswagen group that does this because they're holding out because they got stake in EA, so they're gonna probably live and die by that. But you're going to start seeing all these other EV manufacturers slowly start, trickling in and saying, "Hey, you get Tesla Supercharger support," which is great because it's one of the largest networks and it's the most dependable network out there. So I'm glad you can see this. What I don't like is how you having to remember what apps you can use and what apps you can't use. I mean, I almost need like a flow chart so I can say, "Hey, I have this car. What app I need to use? What app I can't use?" So hopefully they can all clear that up. And then hopefully by next year, everyone can use the Tesla app and everyone can do plug and charge. So that's where I hope we get eventually with this.
Yeah. Which the plug and charge thing will be a challenge. Just, existing EVs and having to get them to where they can actually speak in the ISO 1158 or whatever the number is. I can't remember off the top of my head.
We probably butchered that too. Let us know if we did that as well.
Yep. But that's the real challenge. There is all the certificate-based authentication stuff that has to happen in order for plug and charge to technically work. Unless you do have the EVOA, where you're looking just for vehicle MAC addresses, and then you can roll that to pretty much any car because there's no certificate talking or anything.
There's no
moving on.
Yep.
Lucid has set a date for Gravity. So after much hype, Lucid has finally set an official launch date for the new SUV, the Gravity. So the initial Gravity orders will open on November 7th and be available in 2 trims, the Touring and the Grand Touring. The Touring trim will carry a starting price of $79,900, of course, right under 80 grand, right? And the Grand Touring will start at $94,900. The Grand Touring will enter production first, because of course it will. And
Yes.
with that starting later this year, and the Touring, the cheaper one, is expected to enter production in late 2025. The first Gravity, the Grand Touring, is expected to use the same battery pack found in the Lucid Air Grand Touring, which they're boasting a estimated range of 440 miles on that pack, a 300 kilowatt peak charge rate, and the ability to add, their quotes, 200 miles of range in 15 minutes. Also interesting, Lucid is allowing current Air owners priority on ordering and deliveries of the new Gravity. So it's almost like they know that a lot of people that bought the Gravity would have actually rather had an SUV.
Yep. Not a huge sedan. So yeah. This car, I mean, here's the problem with this car. I can't afford this car. I want this car. I may start a GoFundMe, but this is a really sharp looking electric SUV. I mean, when you talk loose, you're going to get a really cool design and just a well-built car. And I'm glad to come out with the SUV. It's a little cheaper than all the rest of the models, but I just like that color. I like the lights. I love the charging speeds on this. Lucids are stupid fast at charging. I just wish it was like, I don't know, $40,000 cheaper, and then I would buy one. But I can't. So of course, they're going to start with the most expensive one because that's their profit margin. They're going to get more money out of that, and then later on we'll get with the cheaper version. But excited that Gravity is. I'm excited that Lucid is still around. I was worried about them for a while. They did have, I believe they did have some good sales numbers last quarter. They were up. Yeah. Cool. Can't wait to see one of these on the road. And if anyone out there gets one in the Arkansas area, let us know. We'd like to come drive it and test it and drool over it.
So yeah, and I have 2 issues with the Gravity.
Oh.
And one of them is the same issue you had.
Yeah.
I just can't afford it.
I can't afford it. Yeah.
The other thing is there's in pictures, which I haven't seen it in real life. Maybe in real life it won't have the same look. It's the proportions are very minivan to me, which isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah,
I don't have any beef with minivans.
Yeah,
but if you're gonna do the minivan look, you got to put sliding doors on it.
Yeah, it's the slope. It's the slope. Let me go back and share it here and kind of show you what we're kind of looking at here. It's kind of, I understand. It's kind of like that sloped roof, the front windshield slope look down to the front. It does have a kind of minivan vibe. If you weren't looking at it from the door side, it does have a minivan vibe too. You're right.
Yeah, and I think it's also the kind of, it has the super flat roof with the slim windows down the side, and then kind of like a flat back to it. That I think is kind of what also really makes the minivan look. Which, I mean, like I said, I have no problem with minivans, but if you're going to go minivan, you just got to go full tilt on it, right?
That is true. Go big or go home if you got a minivan.
Moving on, Ford CEO states that the next midsize EV pickup will match cost with BYD. So Ford CEO Jim Farley, who we previously talked about, is in love with his Xiaomi SU7 Chinese EV that he had imported into the US for testing, has announced that their new Skunk Works EV will be a game changer, vowing that the new vehicle will match the cost of Chinese automakers currently building in Mexico. This Skunk Works EV is, as we mentioned, going to be start out as a mid-sized truck, although they might have other models in the plan, so I'm not sure. So Ford is still planning on launching this vehicle in the second half of 2027, which we talked a little bit before the show. Is I don't super love getting into vehicles that don't come out for 3 years, but what
so much can change in 3 years.
Especially considering that's 2 years after when they kind of initially said this vehicle would launch. But just for reference, so they're saying it's going to be able to compete in pricing to what is currently being built by BYD and other Chinese automakers in Mexico. So the BYD Shark, which is their BYD's midsize truck that they're selling in Mexico has a starting price converted of 53,000 US dollars, not 53 US dollars.
No,
I'll buy 10.
I'll buy yes, I'll buy 100 of them. So yeah, uh, yeah, I don't. You're right. We don't like. We talk a little about it, but I'm kind of like I don't like talking about cars that are not physically here yet. And I mean, they say the price, but so much can happen. We're talking 3 years out. So much could happen in the EV market that could make that price 45,000 or make that price 75,000. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with the price of lithium. We hope it goes down. I mean, we hope this car starts at 45,000. That would be more in my price range for a truck. But yeah, it's kind of hard to talk about something that we don't know a lot of details about. And I'm not a big fan of the name. Would you say that was a Skunk Works? Is that what you said it was?
Well, that's what they're calling the team. I don't know what the name of the car is yet, but that's what they're calling the team developing the car.
What a horrible name to call it. A team of developers. Sounds like a bad baseball team or something like that, like the Bad News Bears or something, the Skunk Works. So my question is, when this comes in, what happens with the Lightning? Do they keep doing it or not?
Yeah, because at that point the Lightning will be kind of long in the tooth, won't it? And it'll be due for an update. So it'll be interesting to see how Ford chooses to update that vehicle over the next 3 years before they come out with this midsize truck. Yeah.
Yep. So we'll probably just see incremental updates to the Ford F-150 over that time, which is fine. Yeah.
As long as they're meaningful incremental updates, as we kind of mentioned before.
Yep. As long as you keep, I'll keep an old cell phone as long as you keep giving me good updates for it. So yeah.
And our final story for the week is also about Ford. And this one's kind of a big deal, or at least it can be. Ford and LG plan to move Mach E battery production to Michigan. Yay! So under a new agreement between LG and Ford, production of the batteries used in the Mach E will be moving from Poland to Michigan in 2025. Naturally, this is due to tax credits. I mean, that's literally the only reason they probably want to do this. Mm-hmm. They hope by moving from production to the States, the Mach E will be able to qualify for the U.S. federal tax credit, bringing the cost of the vehicles down by up to $7,500, which, now that it starts at $36,000 and some change, would put it at under $30,000 starting if they actually can swing this and have it work in their favor. LG has also signed a deal with Toyota to invest $3 billion into this Michigan plant to supply batteries for Toyota's future U.S.-built EVs. And then just also of note, Ford has signed a deal with SK On to build batteries in Kentucky for the updated E-Transit, as well as the F-150 Lightning. And it's expected that those batteries will begin production in mid-2025.
So, I mean, this is good news. What I'm concerned about, and we don't like to talk politics on the podcast here, we try to keep it right down the middle, is how the IRA and tax credits are going to change after presidential election. Will they stay the same? Will there be some changes to them? So I will kind of see how that affects some of these plans moving forward. But yeah, the one thing we've said about the Mach E is it doesn't qualify for the EV tax credits. And if you can get this car with the EV tax credits, because we just talked about the new ones starting at 36, 37 in 2025. If we can get that down to 30, then this car's a steal at that price. I mean, that's a really good bargain on that car. So hopefully they can pull this off in 2025, because as we have stated several times, Ford has no plans until 3 or 4 years out to bring any new models on. So what do you got to do with the ones you have? You got to make them cheaper, and you got to update them. So glad to hear this news from Ford and LG, and hopefully they can work this all out to bring. And that's one thing we need. We need lower cost EVs. Hopefully they can. This can work out and they can bring the cost down.
Yeah, and I mean, I got to be honest for myself. The Mach E is already pretty tempting at that new $36,000 price range. It gets real tempting if they get it any cheaper than that.
Yeah. If you see sticker prices on this, I'm $29,999. Now we're at that 2 and a 3 at the beginning is a whole lot different.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
All right, well, that is a wrap for today's episode. Thank you for plugging into the Friday Charge. Be sure to subscribe to the EV Geek podcast on YouTube and tap the notification icon to be notified about new releases. We have some great content that recently came out, including a first drive of the new Equinox EV, which be sure to go check that out. We're pretty impressed by it. And we have a new comparison of the Mach E and Model Y. If you have any thoughts or questions, drop them in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. So long, everyone, and we will see you on the next episode of The Friday Charge.